When you decided to make Four Little Girls, did you want to make a documentary? You knew you wanted to make a documentary, or you knew you wanted to make that documentary? When did you start that process?
Well, in film school, I wrote Mr. McNair a letter saying I wanted to do a narrative film about just his daughter. And that was 1981. But many years later, I never forgot about that story. But I got enough wisdom to know that it'd be better for me to do as a document. So the second time I went to Mr. McNair, who I was, in 81, I didn't finish film school. So he said, I was in Birmingham, my family's from Alabama, so they invited him and his wife, Maxine McNair, invited me over. I knew that if I could get Chris Maxine on board and the other, Alpha Robinson, she was the only other parent who was living, the other parents had died. So I spent the night at their house, and they cooked for me and stuff like that, and they trusted me and just, and we shot the document. Ellen Cura's a great cinematographer, she shot it. Also shot for me Bamboozled and Summer Sam. But the hardest thing about this was I had to really pray on including those post-mortem shots. And thought about it long and hard. They were in the cut, they were out the cut. But finally I decided that the audience, whoever saw this, should see what those 100 sticks of dynamite, what they did to these 4 girls who were never allowed to grow up. So the whole thing about the documentary, the way you approach it, I wanted to talk to the people who knew them, and in their own words, tell us what they thought they might have become if they had been allowed to live.
Right, I always appreciate that. One of the things that you said you talked to, that Ellen Kerr shot the film, and I saw her talking about the interview with Maxine McNair and how moving and difficult as a DP that was. Normally, you know, you're behind the camera and you have a little distance. And I was sort of curious, what are some of the things that, did you find moments like that as well? I mean, do you sort of feel, where do you position yourself? Do you sort of protect yourself?
You feel what, it's not about protection, but you have to ask questions. And, and you know you're asking questions that, you know, people can break down. That happened in 1963, we shot that in 96. So even though you could never say the wounds had healed, it was still digging up a lot of emotions they had tried to forget about. And I had just become a parent too, so that you put that on top of it, and you have these people, these great people talking about their loss. But the thing I noticed, which came out, that they weren't bitter, and every reason to be, but none of the parents were bitter. And Alpha Robinson, she's passed recently. She's the only parent living other than that parents.
Chris McNair strikes me as such an interesting character in the film. I mean, not a character, but just a really kind of a credible man. And I do want to know a little bit more about how what did you have to do? What kind of conversations did you have that led to him? I mean, how does a filmmaker build trust, I think, is part of the question.
They see my films.
Right.
So that has a lot to do with it. And if you're a documentary filmmaker and your subjects don't trust you, you're not going to have a film.
Right.
So I have an advantage because they don't know me, but they know me through my work. So
Well, he also said you came from good people, which I love, because he knew your family.
But they knew some of my relatives, so that helped. But you don't have a lot of time. I mean, it's not like I had to, once they said that they wanted to do it, then the next week we're down there shooting.
Right. When did you tell the parents that you were going to use the photos? Had you already made your decision, or did you want them to sort of?
They didn't know about it until they showed it.
Okay.
But they all agreed later on that it was rough to watch, but they were glad it was included.
What in your fiction films, what in your narrative features sort of helped you prepare for Little Girls, which was your first feature-length documentary and one that you were nominated for an Academy Award for?
Just narratives, telling the story, whether it's a documentary or a feature film. For me, it's still telling the story, so I don't really make that great distinction.
In Katrina, and that's a clip that we saw in Katrina, one of the things I love is sort of when you allow your voice to enter into a picture, and that sort of question. It's like the bus never came, and there are sort of other moments like that in the other films that we've seen.
I really tried.
No, you kind of. That's what I'm sort of fascinated by, is that it happens so seldom that I wonder what triggers that. When do you decide to do that? Is there sort of a moment that you think it works differently? Because I think it's very powerful because you don't use it very much.
It's not. It's when you need to hear my question to hear the answer. People who've seen these documentaries, we don't use narrators. There's no narration in any of these. As Sam Paulo, I'd like to thank Sam Paulo, who was editor on all those documentaries. Barry Brown cut King's Economy, and we was robbed. But Sam is my co-producer, and we run away from documentaries as narration. So we just let people tell us.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about Sam Pollard, because I think that with documentaries, I mean, the director-editor relationship is always a rich one, I think, no matter which kind of film you're working on. But I do find that with documentaries, there's something that's very special that goes on, and that you two sort of embarked on this together, and that you've learned things from him.
But I don't think that is different. I don't think it's any different between a race between a director and editor on a narrative.
Well,
it doesn't matter. You still have to work together. I don't really think there's.
What's the moral about this sort of shaping? Because do you go?
You got to shape narrative films too, even though it's scripted. You still have a whole lot of footage, and you have to give it shape. I mean, Sam cut for me. He's cut several of my films. He cut Mo Better. There's three of always get mixed up. The ones that Sam cut, and one that Barry Brown cut. So right away, that tells you that Sam is a great editor because he cuts narrative and documentary films.
What?
Alicia Keys, ringtone.
Yeah.
How did We with Rob come about?
Well, I got approached by these people. They're putting together a bunch of films by directors from all over the world, and they could be about anything, but they had to be only be 10 minutes. There was no limit on the subject matter. And I read the story about how Al Gore was 10 minutes away from making his concessions speech. So I just tracked all these people down and turned the camera on.
And use that 10 minutes as a structure. That's great.
Well, they got, because they were trying to page him in. They just barely got it.
I love that. But now you're working on a Kobe film, right? Or
well, we
can
did.
you talk a little bit about the structure of that? Because I think that's another one that does some pretty interesting things.
Well, there was a film in Cannes 3 years ago about Seydon, the great soccer player. And in that film, they had 30 cameras on him, 20 cameras on him. They were on him the whole match. And so I liked it, but I said, this worked better with basketball. So this past April 13th, there was a game at the Staples Center. The Lakers versus the then world champion San Antonio Spurs. So we had 30 cameras on Kobe. And Phil Jackson allowed us to bring the camera in the locker room before the game, and halftime, and after the game.
When will we get to see that?
It's gonna air on ESPN or ABC to kick off the next basketball season.
Were there any issues about how long, of the length of Katrina, of when the levees broke?
Well, originally gonna be 2 hours.
All right.
Then we told HBO it has to be longer than that. And so the DVD is 6 hours. You know, there's another 2 hours on the DVD. So we're just group, and it's not over. You know, another 2-3 years, we're gonna go back. Not only New Orleans, but the other areas affected, and continue because the story is still continuing.
Well, speaking of making choices about sort of how you shape something, when did you know that was going to be the title of that film? It's so elegant.
Oh, from the beginning.
From the beginning, so then you knew that how you wanted to shape it to some degree.
Because I just knew that it wasn't, a lot of people got tricked to think that it was a hurricane, but it was the destruction of the levee system. And it's the same levees that are breaking in the Midwest now. And Cedar Rapids, the infrastructure of this country is crumbling. And money's going elsewhere.
I think I've asked you this.
That's going to change, though. It's going to be the real chocolate season. Defunct.